Good morning. This is John. It's the first full week of 2020, and I want to share a short message with you about change. Change is very, very difficult. Gallup came out with a book over 20 years ago called First Break All the Rules. They studied for 30 years organizations and people and top performers, and this is what the world's greatest managers learned. People don't change that much. So if you think about it, how many people that get out of prison go back? How many people that lose weight gain the weight back, or stop drinking, start drinking again? Change is very, very difficult. So to succeed at changing, we just have to admit how difficult it is. And when we attempt to make a change, you got to look at it on the front side. It's very likely that this isn't going to work. If you don't admit that, then it's probably not going to work. So then, how do you change? We think the answer is something called heart learning. What do we mean by that? There's things that are in your head, but you haven't applied them. So let me ask you this question. Have you ever asked yourself or said to yourself, I've learned my lesson this time? Why would you say this time? You say that because you've had that information in your head, but you didn't realize how important it was. And because you didn't value that information, you either did something that you shouldn't have done or you didn't do something that you should have done. And this time you said to yourself, wow, this is serious. So I am going to change my behavior. When you made the commitment to change your behavior, that's when you learned your lesson. You didn't learn it when the information came into your head. You learned it when you changed your behavior and created a new habit. Now, we live in a world of too much information and not enough transformation. So when I do workshops, we tell people that on the front side, there will be no new information. So you're not going to learn anything. Not if you define learning as information. But if you have information in your head and you're not using it, then you really haven't learned your lesson. That takes a lot of maturity to look in the mirror and say, I know this, but I haven't learned my lesson. So that's a question I want you to ask yourself this week. What do I know that I haven't learned? If you have information in your head and you cannot point to a habit, then you haven't learned your lesson. So how do you do that? Here's a simple exercise I'd like you to give some thought to. Think of the 5 most important areas in your life, areas of living. Now, for me, it's God, family, my career, turning my talent into service, health, and finances. So for you, what are those 5? Once you get those written down on a piece of paper, think about what letter grade would you give yourself in those areas? Would you, if you're average, put a C. Better than average, put a B. If you're already excellent, put an A. And don't be afraid to put an A if, in fact, you think you are excellent. You probably are excellent in 1 or 2 of these things. Now, after you've finished, look at those things. The ones that are B's or C's, you have to ask yourself, why are they B's or C's? And here's the simple answer. You have a talent, you have a brain, you have a heart, but you're just not doing a work. In other words, your habits, your consistent behaviors aren't lined up with what an A looks like. So that leads you to the first question. What does an A look like? What are the things I should be doing? If I did these things every day, once a week, once a month, that would be an A. What does that look like? So for each of those 5 areas, write down the 3 most important habits you could do to get an A in that area of life. So if you do this exercise from start to finish, you've got 5 areas. Now you've got 3 habits in each area. That's 15 habits. And the reason you're writing these things down is because they're not already habits, or maybe some of them are, maybe some of them you're already doing. Then if you look at these 15 potential habits, pick one that is not consistent or isn't the quality that you want it to be. Work on that habit until it becomes a habit. When it becomes a habit, then it'll be automatic. And over time, you will get an A in every area of your life. Most of us are not living A lives. And if you think about it, it's really pretty simple. An A life comes from an A day. Successful days make a successful life. So here's the simple things. Clarity on what's most important to you. What are the 5 most important areas of your life? Clarity on what are the behaviors, what are the habits that give you an A in each one of those 5 areas. Writing those things down. If it ain't writing, it ain't real. Get yourself an accountability partner. Meet with them at a minimum once a month and discuss whether or not this thing has become a habit or not. But here's a final tip. If you pick one thing and you sit down with your accountability partner a month later and it's not a habit yet, please don't move on to another habit. Stick with that one until it becomes a habit. If you will send me an email, john@simpleleadershipstrategies.com, I'd be more than happy to send you a 3 C's of change form. The 3 C's of change stands for confront, contribute, and commit. Confront simply says, here's an area of my life that I want to get better in, and I'm going to write this down. Contribute is a section where you look at what are the things that you could do, what are your options, what are the possibilities, what are your choices. And then C is the commit part. I'm going to take one of those choices and I'm going to make that a habit. Also in the 3 C's of change form, it's on there, who is the accountability partner? When are we going to meet? I'm telling you, if you use this form, if you write this down, if you put it on your mirror, if you pick the right person, that's pretty critical. And if you get together once a month, one habit at a time, you're going to slowly become the person that you're capable of. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.